Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Strategic Command World War II, World at War, a World War II turn-based strategy game that we've been playing for quite some time, and in which the war is not going so well for the Allies. The war is going well for the Americans in the Pacific. They've crushed at least half the Japanese High Seas Fleet. They're still roughly an equivalent Japanese force to the American Pacific Fleet, but overall things are going reasonably well there. The Americans have landed and retaken Kwajalein and Rui Namur. Will probably land on any VTOC next turn in early 1943, and then we may shift north to take Wake before shifting west to deal with the Marianas, and then from the Marianas we'll move toward Japan. So that my hope is by the middle of 1943 we may knock Japan out of the war altogether. That may be overly optimistic, but hey, I'm in an optimistic mood in the Pacific. I also wonder if there is not a major Pacific battle coming. We've already kind of won our midway and crushed like 3 Japanese fleet carriers, but we did spot a Japanese destroyer out near the Caroline Islands. We know they have at least 2 battleships. We saw one in the Philippines a turn ago. We saw a carrier and another battleship in the Gulf of Siam not long ago. And so that could be a potential thing that we need to be mindful of. Additionally, Singapore has not fallen. The British have raced reinforcements down through Thailand, which is apparently on the Allied side, and have kicked the Japanese out of the Malay Peninsula and are now preparing potentially to launch some amphibious assaults against Palembang, Batavia, and the heart of the Japanese economy in these oil regions. China, meanwhile, is hanging on, not more better than historical, but better than often is the case in this game, and that is probably coming to an end. We're in the monsoon season, so it's helping insulate us against the Japanese air power, but you can see here large numbers of Japanese units, large numbers of Japanese air power, and large numbers of Japanese artillery units and tank units that are slowly grinding us down and breaking out. We are plugging the gap with British Indian forces that are coming across the mountains and coming to aid the Chinese, but it's probably too little, with very little in the way of air support also. But they're at least slowing the Japanese down, so that hopefully we can hold out in China for another year or 6 months or so, and then hit Japan in the home islands, forcing Japan to surrender, or at least lose its ability to produce new units, while isolating large numbers of Japanese troops in China. Obviously, if China falls, then Japan will move toward India, which would be completely undefended at this point, other than a few garrison units, but it is what it is. Also, the British Indian fleet, or the fleet in the Bay of Bengal, could be used to help crush the Japanese Navy there as well. That's the situation right now. British beginning to contemplate counterattacks against the Japanese oil. The Americans beginning the Pacific drive against Japan. Things look well there. North Africa already liberated. The Allies already on Western Europe, taking Madrid, driving all the way into the northern bounds of Spain, which had joined the fascist Axis powers, and now driving into southern France, approaching Tours and Nantes from the south, from Spain, not that far from Paris. And yet the reason things look bleak for the Allies is not because of any of this. All of these things are positive. The reason things look bleak, well, for one, Italy is strongly held still and unlikely to fall anytime soon, but the reason things are bleak is Germany is on the doorstep of Moscow, on the verge of breaking through. Leningrad is about to be completely overwhelmed. Stalingrad has fallen. The alternate capital at Kuybyshev has fallen. The secondary alternate capital at Perm could potentially fall before too long. And the Germans have absolutely no likelihood of being stopped by the Russians, who are completely overmatched and overwhelmed. And so the failures in Russia have largely driven Germany's superiority and the Axis powers' superiority. The Axis powers, Germany and their minor allies, have 113 land units. Russia has 26. The United States has 23. The British have 44. Those 3 powers are smaller than Germany, let alone Japan. Italy has a further 19 units, so that the Allied powers have, or the Axis powers have almost 200 units on their side, compared to fewer than 100 Allied. Well, I guess if you count China and Spain, that's 25 more. So slightly over 100 Allied. Let's look, 25, 51, 70. Yeah, so slightly over 100 Allied ground units. The German air superiority is a big thing. They have 21 air units. Almost all of them seem to be in Russia. The Japanese have 12. The Allies have very few air units, although their naval aircraft carriers make up for some of that discrepancy. because they have quite a superiority there. The real question is, if the Soviet Union falls, the game's not over. The Germans have to take London, basically. Now, England is almost completely hollowed out of troops, and presumably the Germans will turn to crush the Allied invasion force in southern Europe. But that could give us enough time to reinforce England and at worst, potentially force a minor Axis victory. If we can force the Japanese out of the war, who knows? Who knows what the situation could be? But those are all a lot of big what-ifs, and it's now about time to see what the Germans have in store for them. We've had a single garrison holding up a German army and a Italian corps, if you will, in the Caucasus on the drive on Baku. Overall, things are not looking great, but my hope is that the winter comes this turn and that the German Air Force is grounded and that the Germans get these massive penalties to their offensive due to the winter penalties, and that we can buy Russia into like March or April. That is my prayer, my hope. Turns take 2 weeks. Every other. So the Germans go, then 2 weeks later the Allies go, then 2 weeks later the Germans go. That's the way this works. So basically 1 turn per month. With that being said, we're moving into the end of December as soon as I go ahead and hit this end turn button. So let's go ahead and do that. By the way, for those of you who are later watching on YouTube, obviously if you're watching on Twitch, you already know that this is live. But for those of you who are later watching on YouTube, this is a live stream. Heroic Logic, thanks for the follow. And LCG Canyon, thank you very much for the bits. The support is greatly appreciated. So let's go ahead and get started and see what happens as we move into late December. Henry L. Stimson, Secretary of War. Bill Donovan's Office of Strategic Services proposes to extend its network of agents in Vichy, Algeria to suborn local officials, both military and civilian, in order to pave the way for a U.S. landing in the country. For a cost of 25 MPPs, OSS believes that these agents could carry out minor uprisings in our favor, should American forces land at either Casablanca, Oran, or Algiers. Would you like to authorize the OSS intrigue in this manner in Vichy? Well, I have no intention to actually land in North Africa. I've already taken the parts of North Africa I want. So it says, while any risings by pro-Allied forces in Vichy, Algeria could only weaken them rather than eliminate enemy resistance, they could be very useful if we were to land American soldiers in Algeria. If you say yes, then the risings will occur when American troops land in Algeria. These risings would occur when Algeria joins the Axis, or we declare war on her. Before Operation Torch, I guess I'll spend the points, if only because, oh yes, Spain surrenders! Oh, nice! The UK gets 236 MPPs from Spain. Finally, the Spanish actually surrendered. That knocks Spain out of the war on the Axis side and gives us a little bit of an economic boost there. Heavy fighting on the Marshall Islands. U.S. forces close in on Japan. U.S. develops amphibious warfare level 4. That'll be useful in the Pacific. The British get 363 MPPs. I don't see any of that as part of the actual the plunder of Spain, so actually they have 608 MPPs. So that'll be very useful for the British. Germany raises a Don Cossack cavalry corps. Great, just what we need, more German units arrayed against us. Hey, Akerstan is taken, and the Soviet corps here blocking those Bulgarian troops' progress is isolated. Meanwhile, 3 Japanese destroyers move in against us near Truk. We've detected Japanese fleet carriers. They're making a strike against our battleships, so we are witnessing another major fleet battle here. They're doing serious damage to our lead battleship near the Marshall Islands. Our carriers... Oh no, they got him! So there's at least 2 enemy carriers in the area, and an enemy light cruiser and 3 destroyers. So we just lost a battleship. That's a pretty big loss for us. Meanwhile, Japanese heavy cruisers moving in and engaging our own. We've got a major surface battle here underway. This appears to be a climactic battle, with the Japanese pitching in with the bulk of the rest of their fleet. They're getting a good first strike against us. It is snowing in Russia, so that does mean that the German Air Force, at least in and around Moscow, will be grounded. You can see everywhere there's snow flurries, they can't fly Air Force units. The southern portion of Russia, down near Stalingrad, is not snowy, so they can launch airstrikes there. It does look like China is mostly rainy as well, which prevents the Japanese Air Force from striking in China, which is going to be an absolute godsend for our troops down there who have been getting massacred by Japanese Air Forces down there. German Air Forces, meanwhile, striking that isolated core here, doing serious damage and nearly destroying it. German artillery pounding Soviet positions outside sort of the northwestern portion of the Moscow line. You can see they nearly destroyed this Russian core. German infantry attacks could certainly finish the job. Armored units are attacking our T-34s there. They wiped out an Air Force unit with some ground units attacking. British soldiers are being attacked southeast of Changsha. Badly bloodied, but no Japanese breakthrough. Doesn't look like that's likely anywhere along these fronts. They do drive us back from Yan'an. As a reminder, the Chinese communists surrendered last turn with the fall of Yan'an. The Japanese have us effectively flanked in China in the north, but the terrain is working against their ability to truly break out. Meanwhile, attacks on the fortifications and entrenchments south of Leningrad, they're wearing down our army there, but without the support of air attacks, they're unable to break through. So the Russian winter at least has bought us another turn without too much more serious disaster other than the breakthroughs there in the south of Russia. They're continuing to flank, and why are we retreating into enemy units? And there goes that Russian army. Well, Leningrad's not looking great. Neither is the situation in the south, but Moscow is largely unchanged. We could potentially cut these Germans off that are flanking east of Moscow. They also just paradropped troops north of Grozny here to try and reduce this garrison, although I think they failed, at least for the moment there. How is that German armored unit completely surrounded, still advancing? You'd think they'd be completely without supply at this point. Meanwhile, Japanese troops moving on the northern road to the alternate capitals in China. German subs off the northern coast of England. Level 3 experienced subs, too. Those guys are cracked. They're going to be very difficult to crush. Soviet morale improves as the war on the Eastern Front continues. The Regina Marina commissions the Aquila... So Italy now has an aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean. Communist partisans in Langkau mobilized. Nice. Partisan activity in China. Good. So do some damage to the enemy's supplies. Vichy France is moving 6% toward the Axis. I mean, they're probably going to move to the Axis no matter what, right? Hey, Moradim. All right, so we lost the 3rd Red Fighters, the 2nd Red Fighters, and the 16th Soviet Army. We also lost the American destroyer Wainwright and the battleship Colorado. Now, the good news is, with this many Japanese carriers around, I do think there's a potential for us to seriously damage the Japanese fleet even further. But we'll have to take a look. A new battleship looks like it's near Hiroshima. Intelligence telling us where the actual Japanese fleet at sea is would be more useful than all of these back-end garrison units. Meanwhile, the USS Essex has arrived, and we'll deploy her at Los Angeles. Two Russian corps have arrived. So deploy one of those in Volkhov, I think. Actually, let's do this. Let's move this headquarter unit back one. I'm going to deploy one of these units in Leningrad so it can begin digging in. And then I'm going to deploy the other unit... maybe in the south, near Gurev? I'm not really sure. Let's wait on deploying that guy. I really need to close... Hate the idea of doing this, but I'm hoping that the Russian winter is a big enough penalty for him that... God damn it. That did not work at all. Okay, we're going to have to deploy those troops in the north, I think. So we'll have to move this aircraft down. We'll deploy the new unit here to guard the northern flank of Moscow. We'll also reinforce this armor here. We'll keep these other guys all in position, not moving them at all. Reinforce these troops at Moscow. Alright, meanwhile, the troops at the army south of Leningrad will reinforce. These troops are going to pull back to Volkov. That's a national morale objective, so we can't really afford to let it fall at the moment. So that's probably it in the north. Reinforce those fighters. Hopefully they can help us if the Germans come knocking. We also have 230 more points for the Soviets, so I think actually one thing, let's go ahead and pull out north here. That army I hate to let die, but I think I'm going to. This German armor should be low on supply. It is. It's completely out of supply, so they should suffer attrition damage until they can get more supply. So unless the Germans can break through here, which I'm hopeful that they can't against this Vladivostok Corps over here, this German armored unit may be forced to starve. Meanwhile, the garrison at Grozny will reinforce, continuing blocking access to Baku and the oil reserves there. In theory, this oil could be transferred across to Krasnoyarsk and then railed throughout the Soviet Union, although that's not really super realistic. All right, so we've got 220 more points for the Soviets. We should go ahead and purchase some units. Buy a new army here. Buy a new garrison. So we can buy a new army and a new garrison. We also have a shock army coming in February of 43, and then a regular army in February. So we've got a corps and a garrison in January, so by our next turn. And then the turn after, we've got additional reinforcements coming. Again, none of this stuff is enough to turn the tide. This went wrong in the sense that Germany is a little bit OP in this game, I think. But I also don't really know how to play as the Allies. I won the game already when I played as Germany my first time through. It was relatively easy, to be honest. You know what I should have done is I should upgrade those troops. I didn't. That was a mistake. Especially these... Well, some of these troops are not in contact, but... Oh, boy. Alright, so that's the Soviet front. Let's go jump back over to the American battle fleet here. So the weather is actually pretty good. Old Jube, thanks for the follow. Alright, we're going to pull these cruisers back to Pearl. They're too badly damaged to be of much use. Next, mixed naval tactical. Mixed naval tactical. Right, we know the enemy has carriers nearby. I'd like to engage those with naval vessels. 4-3, 2-3, 4-5. All right, let's do this. Let's use our escort carriers here against this Japanese battleship. The escorts only get one attack each. So we pushed it back. See if we can finish him off. Got him! Nice! That enemy battleship is destroyed. Alright, so we'll use this fleet carrier here against this Japanese battleship. The enemy carriers don't seem to be doing much here. Alright, we'll finish him off. So a second Japanese battleship is destroyed. I'm trying to search for these guys. The problem is I don't have any light ships, so I might get this battleship sunk by the enemy air force. We know they had 2 enemy carriers out this way. Alright, so we spotted one of the enemy carriers. We finished off that enemy cruiser. Alright, so I'm going to race my battleship west and engage him in a surface fight. Race this battleship here. Damn it, we didn't finish him. This guy already engaged. I don't have much left in my surface capabilities. Alright, so I spotted the other enemy carrier. Finished off that. Okay. So I already moved. This battleship can reach. Didn't quite finish him. Do you have any cruisers? Anything else that can do anything? No. No, no. Oh, nice. This escort, I forgot about this guy. He still has a strike left. Got him! 2 Japanese carriers down, 2 Japanese battleships down, 1 Japanese heavy cruiser down. So, the enemy destroyers could still come in and play a factor in this, but that's a pretty damn big victory in my opinion. We'll move most of our ships out this way. This heavy cruiser should probably upgrade its guns and air defense, so it'll stay back at Pearl. You love the sight of large caliber shells crashing through an enemy flight deck? Yeah, but P. Warner, that's overpen, right? Alright, so I'm more worried about the Japanese destroyers if they do strike out against us. Not too worried about them hurting our battleships, but our carriers are pretty vulnerable. Alright, we'll move that carrier here. We were going to make a landing on any VTOC, which is apparently a national morale sector as well. So we hurt them there. Go ahead and throw these guys on long-range transports. We're going to try and overwhelm any VTOC next turn. We really should make a play on Tarawa as well. But we've got these 2 Marine divisions here. We battered any VTOC without loss. We're going to hopefully finish it off next turn, which is another national morale objective. Kwajalein was as well. So that should hurt the Japanese morale. The loss of those warships should also hurt the Japanese morale. The Japanese Navy is now below 10 vessels. We know 3 of them are those destroyers that we saw. So with 3 destroyers, you know, I don't know what else they have, but 9 warships. The Americans have 21. Now, granted, a fair number of the American warships are in the Atlantic, so they could still have another carrier or 2. We know they have a battleship way up here, so between the battleship and the 3 destroyers, that would leave 5 more warships somewhere. Not sure where. Okay. I'm kind of tempted to send the Australian heavy cruiser up this way also, just in the event that we need them to support. We probably should do that, actually. Can send this guy up to screen our carriers. So we'll send the Perth, a light Australian cruiser, up to help. Actually, there's 2 Japanese subs off the coast of Australia, so, or 1 or 2. So if there's 2 there, the 3 destroyers and the 1 battleship, that only leaves 3 additional Japanese warships anywhere undetected. We'll send the Leadener, or however you pronounce that, New Zealand cruiser north as well. She's just kind of been chilling out by New Zealand. And hopefully this is sort of the final battle with the Japanese fleet. That's got to be a blow to their national morale also. If we take a look at the graphs, we go to national morale, and we click on Japan, they're at about 80%. If we take a look at their MPPs, you can see here over almost, actually probably about 2,000 MPPs lost this turn. They have received, since the war began, a total of 14,391 income. They've spent 8,391. They've lost 22,893. So not a good return for them. The Germans, on the other hand, are doing much better. 24,000 received, 14,000 spent, 21,000 lost. That still feels like, I don't know, that doesn't feel quite right. All right. Move some British troops out of Singapore, see if we can get them south. Again, the intention with these troops is to get them into a counterattack against the Japanese oil, which is a big part of their economy in Palembang. We can see the west. Oh, there's an Italian destroyer anyway. So at least some Italian warships are in this area. Why would there be an Italian destroyer down here? Can we reach? No. Can this guy reach? No. Can this guy reach? No. Okay, let's do this. Let's bring this battleship down to Fort Blair. Let's bring these battleships into Rangoon. Actually, we should pull it out of Rangoon. Should move it closer down to Penang. This carrier needs to reinforce it. So we'll spend some money there. I think I just reinforced the air wing. Okay. Meanwhile, the Americans put a garrison on Honolulu. The Essex can't move yet since she just deployed, but that'll make us stronger. I would not be surprised if we lose another ship or two in the Pacific. We're a little bit bloodied. We could use some time to reinforce ourselves. But I think the damage we did to the Japanese is going to be greater than anything they can inflict on us. The question, I guess, is if they have any air power out of truck. If they do, they might be able to bomb us there. But also with the bringing up of these two sort of Anzac cruisers that we're bringing north, that should also help offset losses. You can see Port Moresby still on our control. Let's check out China. I know I'm kind of jumping all over here. Difficulty level is about normal, I think. Alright, we'll pull those British soldiers out. Nice. Drove the Japanese armor back, then we'll fall back on Changsha. We'll upgrade this unit with infantry. Weapon level 2. So we badly bloodied that Japanese tank and drove it back. Woof. Reinforce these Chinese troops. Langkao. So I moved my infantry forward here to hit the Japanese aircraft, their tactical air. We'll pull back here to Yichang. I know I cost myself the entrenchment. My hope is that the weather stays bad and that we don't get hit by air. I was trying to weaken the enemy air force with that move. Also, we'll attack there to do some damage to this army here, to weaken its striking power. British armor coming in from, or not British, Commonwealth armor coming in from India. Actually, we'll undo that. We'll move the anti-aircraft units a little bit faster. Go ahead and operate. Oh, I can't operate these guys. I guess we'll fly them forward here into India. Some Indian fighters. Hopefully provides a semblance of air cover. We've already moved the British troops in Malaya. We've loaded some on transports, moved others to Penang. I'm going to try and land at Palembang and take these areas are very valuable, these oil areas, and maybe take Palembang as a secondary supply center. If we can do that, then we may also move down to Batavia to see if we can take that capital of the Dutch East Indies. Okay. China still has 49 points down here. They're hanging out in Canton, which is a supply center, so I'll kind of keep them where they are. Oops, didn't want to do that. Erlook, thanks for the follow. Appreciated. Alright, so these units should help. We might be able to reduce these 2 Japanese Marine units down here in the south. I don't have a lot else I can do right now. I guess, let's see here. Are there partisans down here? There are. So I can't really move. I could buy another garrison Indian unit, which is probably a smart thing to do. Or I could get another corps to make up for the destroyed one. It's 108. We'll do that. As much as maybe a garrison would be more useful. Charles Char, thanks for the follow also. Meanwhile, I'm also kind of thinking, it looks like the Germans are starting to bring reinforcements in here into southern France. I wonder if the moment is right to declare war on Vichy. Not that I need more enemies, but it seems like they're going to declare war on us eventually, right? Vichy's up to 62% Axis. So if we just declare war now... I've been thinking about it, and a lot of you have been saying I should do it. So we'll move in south here toward Montpellier. These infantry here will drive on Vichy itself. Vichy is apparently unoccupied. That's interesting. Now, the real risk is that the Germans are going to race reinforcements in from Italy or other parts of the Reich. We'll move in and take the capital of Vichy. I don't get why some of these units can't move. Like, I don't understand. Alright, let's move these Canadians into this town. Operate our Canadian headquarters forward, or move it by land. Let's move this British headquarters forward. We'll move the Americans into Bordeaux. And operate the Canadians forward here. They've got armored units up on the front. Go ahead and attack this German infantry unit here in the snow. Move our armor and infantry forward here. Infantry up here. We've got Portuguese troops moving in as well. I don't know if we're going to see an auto declaration of war by Tunis or by Algeria. I kind of feel like we should just declare on Tunis anyway, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so we're gonna... This should also free up my North African soldiers. So we're gonna move on Tunisia as well. Hey, Unknown X Origin, thanks for the follow. So you can see here there's one enemy corps at Tunis. We're moving in overwhelming forces against them. Hopefully, anyway. What I assume to be overwhelming. The plan will be to crush Tunis and then move west on Algiers. That'll also help our income. we have any South African forces around here? I thought we did. Meanwhile, we do have additional reinforcements coming up from the Americans. Where do I want to drop them is the question. Alright, this is the 10th Army. We'll move them into Bordeaux. Meanwhile, the American Corps is also coming up here. We'll also move them into Bordeaux. So American reserves are flooding into France now. A new corps and a new army have arrived. The 1st Ranger Special Forces are also going to make a play here. They're an amphibious force, so they can land forward of enemy positions. So we'll land them here along the French coast. And this should let us spread our formation out a bit. The real question comes down to if the Axis powers now pull troops out of Italy and move them into Vichy or not. I don't know if Vichy will fall just because we take the capital. I'm not quite sure how that works. German sub down here. It's raining where he is now. Why can't any of my ships do any damage against him? I get their ASW is not very good, but his submarine technology is not very good either. I think it's raining here. His morale is certainly rock bottom for those. Alright, let's... So where do we have to put garrisons? We need to put a garrison at Zaragoza. And then one between these two towns. They can't even operate. Jeez, dude. They can't force march either. You know what we're gonna do here? Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Can't these guys get on transports? No? Alright, so these guys need to be surrounded now because they're going to get torpedoed if I don't put ships in the adjacent hexes, so they should be relatively safe. Then I will jump these guys forward to land an amphibious landing here, somewhere along the, not the rear, but somewhere along the enemy position. Gibraltar has been recaptured. We can't even force them to, like, retreat. Good God. I just want to drive him back to 1 hex out of the rainy zone, but apparently not. Meanwhile, this sub here is going to pull back to Lisbon. This destroyer actually here might be level 2 ASW. Or no, it's level 2 naval. Never mind. We're going to reinforce this Mexican Corps here. We're going to send the Mexican Corps across the ocean as well to come aid the Allies. Garrisons here. All right. All right, so with the fall of Spain, let's Let's just hope they don't spot our transports coming up here. If they don't know they're there, they may not attack them. I'd like to get more garrison troops into Spain as we start to shift more troops into southern France. The declaration on Vichy should at least pull some pressure off the Russian front, my hope. But again, honestly, I wonder if the Germans and Italy couldn't just completely prevent our ability to do much. Meanwhile, this British sub will attack the Italian carrier in here. Hopefully block the way. There's a German headquarters unit here, too. Hey, the man from Texas. How you doing there? Alright, we'll reinforce those aircraft. Same for that battleship. Some of these ships lost quite a bit of strength. We're also going to go ahead and transport this anti-aircraft gun. So, can this guy move? It can. So we're going to bring this anti-aircraft gun into Barcelona. To hopefully help with the invasion here when the enemy air force shows up. We're also going to move our own American fighters forward here, our British fighters. Hopefully they can provide some air cover again should the weather open up. Okay. Forgot about these maritime bombers, but they're not going to be much good either. The Germans have a lot of U-boats, but they don't have much of a navy outside of that. Go figure. Meanwhile, for the Americans, they have 300 and some odd money left. I also think I should go ahead and throw... We've got some armor out this way. Can I upgrade these tanks? Oh, just air defense. So we'll put these tanks on long-range transports, and I intend to bring them in to try and maybe knock out some of the Japanese holdings in the south here. The British still have a little bit of money left, so I don't normally have extra money for this. So I'm actually going to throw some British units down here on transports as well. The problem is they're very short-ranged, so they're not gonna be fast or anything. Alright, let's try this. So these guys on transports. I don't want to move them adjacent to enemy subs. Oh, no. Undo! Undo! Shit! I didn't want them to stop there. I don't know why they stopped there. I never ordered that. I thought I could move them in chunks. Fucking A. Right, let's move that headquarter unit to Moresby to give them a better supply. Well, hopefully that core doesn't get destroyed. Meanwhile, my own troops are going to move to engage the Japanese here in northern New Guinea. Maybe we can destroy some Japanese units here, move on Rabaul or something like that out of Leh. That initial attack wasn't a great result for us, but I'm hoping by moving this headquarters unit in here we'll get better supply. We'll have 4 supply here next turn. The enemy has 5 in Leh, so that may not be a very good strategy. Okay, so the British, meanwhile, let's do some research here. The British have 126 MPPs left. We need better tanks. I can't afford them. Need better air. Can't really afford that either. I need more research. Amphibious warfare, probably something we should research, especially if our intent is to move against the Japanese in the Pacific, so we'll do that for them. The Americans have 275. We need to bump up the research. Our infantry weapons are already level 2. Air defense probably needs to bump up 1. That still leaves us with 150. Amphibious is already at 4. That's probably good enough. We're already researching to get it to 5. Logistics needs to be better as well. I know I'm researching sort of ancillary technologies, but I think they're going to be important. So that's that. I think that's it for the turn. We already kind of did Russia. We did China. We just have to hope for more bad weather as the seasons favor us. Yes, I know there's a air unit there in India I'm leaving behind. That's deliberate. These Free French troops we're going to send. Into Montpellier. Hopefully they can get unloaded without getting hit. I'd like to get this British headquarters unit out of North Africa. That's one of the reasons I declared war on Tunis, is I want to crush Tunis and Algeria. I probably should have done this sooner, but I want to crush these two Axis powers so then I can get all my troops out of Africa, or at least the bulk of them out of Africa, leave a handful of naval units here to prevent any landings there, and then get these additional 4 or 5 units into Europe. Let's move this guy to Lyon. The enemy could try and swing south and retake Vichy and cut off from my mechanized forces, but I doubt it. We haven't seen any Vichy troops. I don't know if maybe they don't spawn till a turn after the war. Maybe you have to take Marseille to knock them out of the war. I'm not sure. But I'm trying to get into the defensive terrain. It'd be great to sweep into northern Italy, but I know there's enemy troops there. I also don't think I have the requisite supply support here. Some of these guys are going to be pretty exposed. My hope is by moving some of these headquarters units in here, we rectify the supply situation a little bit, but I'm not sure we have enough headquarters to do that. But I think that's probably it for this turn. I'm debating moving some of my naval forces here in the south. Once we get these troops clear. We'll see. I don't know how strong his... I don't think his Mediterranean force is very strong. I think we destroyed pretty much the entire Italian Navy. The building of this enemy carrier may be the only fleet unit it has. I'd love to drive in and take Brest. That's a secondary supply city that can help support our advance. I don't know if Vichy is or not. I assume Marseille is, but we've got to see. Hey, Jeremy, Dave. Yeah, so I think that's it for this turn. All right, everybody, that's going to do it from this episode of Strategic Command, World War II, World at War. In this episode, we declared war on Vichy France, General Winter arrived in Russia, and the war continued to progress. Overall, I think it was actually a pretty good turn, especially when compared with the last turns. You can really see the penalties that the German military has to deal with in Russia due to the arrival of winter. We're only going to have a couple of turns like this, so we'll see how things play out long term. I don't know if it changes the situation or if it just delays the inevitable, but we're continuing to make progress in Europe with the declaration of Vichy. We're expanding the front in Europe, and hopefully we're going to force the German military to divert substantial reinforcements from Russia that will seriously delay the advance there. Or they wait too long and allow us to get so much of France that the economic increase that he gets from Russia when it falls is completely offset. But we'll see. That'll be for next time. This was taken from a live stream from my Twitch channel, so feel free to follow me over there. The link is in the description, and you can join our live streams. But until next time, this is the Historical Gamer, once again saying thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.